I don't want to get into that because I can't give proofs. What I will say is that if you look at the church of the first centuries apparently, and I've done some research about this, there was no piano in the church where Jesus Christ was alive. There was no pipe organ. There was certainly not an electric guitar or a set of drums. There was none of this stuff. As a matter of fact, a very dear friend of mine who's a preacher said when Jesus Christ comes back, he's not going to recognize the church of today because it changed so much. We also know that the believers of the time of Jesus met in fellowships called what? The Way. So they did not have, you know, these elaborate churches with full orchestras and all this kind of stuff that we have today. So I can't tell you why they've deviated from what was, but certainly it's very clear from these verses that they don't pray the way that their prophets prayed, most of them, and they don't do ablution. There are certain things that they do not do anymore that they've abandoned. Yes, brother?
No, but Acts, Exodus, and Genesis, those are Old Testament, right?
No, no. Acts is in the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, and that's how it goes in the New Testament. So when you see Exodus, that's Old Testament. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. When you see Acts, you're looking at New Testament.
I have a friend. She is very. I mean, she loves, you know, the whatever is in the Bible. So anytime if I say something, she would always tell me that, okay, well, it used to be an Old Testament, but it's not New Testament. Because of Peter, you know, he came up with a lot of those New Testaments, so we don't have to obey the Old Testament thing.
Well, and that is actually a very easy concept for me because the Christians say that the New Testament was the compilation of the Old Testament, that it was the completion. We say that the Quran was the completion, the seal of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Right. So it's the same thing, it's just another person saying it. Except it's much more palatable if they say it than if we say it. It seems that people are offended when we say the same thing that they say. There's a double standard. But that's exactly how we see it. So there were some abrogations. Let's think about it. In the Holy Quran, originally, people were allowed to drink. It said, don't go to your prayers, be fogged. So there were people, there were Sahaba, people that are guaranteed paradise that died with alcohol on their breath. Now, if somebody dies with alcohol on their breath and the community finds out about it, some communities won't even bury that person today. They're so self-righteous. And this is religiosity. Where is the mercy in that? Where is the compassion of God in that? Yes, brother?
I had taken a mythology course, and it laid out all the religions, really. And it was interesting because how we saw how unmerciful and threatening in the Christian Bible, God was in the Old Testament, and how turn of the century, all of a sudden the New Testament came out and God was merciful and loving and kind and forgiving. I think it's interesting that, to me, from that course, I kind of learned, I feel like Christianity changed when the New Testament came about because it wasn't as harsh and critical as the Old Testaments were.
Well, Allahu Alam, I think a lot of that has to do with if you look at the history of people, if you look at, say, for example, the history of the Muslims, a land of alcoholics, a land of people that had so deviated they were burying their daughters alive. These were hard-hearted people. The Quran describes these people as having hearts of stone. Yeah. So, to me, it's not hard to understand that if I'm going to have a heart of stone, I'm not going to be very merciful. At the same time, if I look at the Arabic, if I look to the Kalam of Allah, the speech of Allah, he begins 113 of 114 chapters with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the merciful and the compassionate. And then if I look in Surah 5, it says, spare not of the mercy of Allah. And if you remember that halakha that I did in the month of Ramadan, I think I used 12 verses about how it's haram not to acknowledge the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
He says you are right.
Yes, he's saying amen to jiddu.
Yeah, you are right.
So here's another comparison. Then said the Lord to him, put off thy shoes from thy feet. What does that sound like? When we go to the masjid, we take our shoes off our feet. For the place where thou standest is holy ground. What do we know about a masjid? Once a masjid is built, we do not ever destroy that building. It is forever a masjid. Yes, Mommy?
There was a celebration there.
Yes, they did the celebration of the groundbreaking. Unfortunately, we couldn't go because we weren't back.
Foundation.
So also I want to just touch base with you that feet washing was a common active hospitality in Palestine in the time of Isa alayhi salam. Now, when I was growing up, there was a church, when I was 15 years of age, I was actually working as an associate minister for a church in North Carolina. And we had, several times of the year, foot washing services. And I remember crying because of the humility, the beautiful experience of washing my brother's feet. Now, every once in a while, I got one of those brothers with a lot of corns and bunions and rough spots on their feet, and that sort of put me off a little bit.
But it was more humble.
But the experience, the spiritual experience of washing my brother's feet was amazing. And of course, if you think about the time, and I haven't forgotten you, brother, when the people were traveling on donkeys and camels and horses and whatever, and the sandy deserts and the areas of the Middle East, and we have folks here that have spent great deals of time, actually grew up in Palestine. When you arrived at somebody's house, you were dusty and dirty. So what a blessing. Imagine arriving at someone's house and they pull out some water and they wash your feet for you. I mean, I'd say, well, so they are happy to see me. Yes, brother.
That was a Methodist?
No, this was an independent church that I was working in at the time.
They still do that in the Primitive Baptist?
Yes, they do.
The Methodist in North Carolina, Alabama, and Cottonville.
And a lot of the Pentecostal churches do feet washing services.
They do it outside, though. They all gather in
Now we did it right in the church.
Picnic shelter, and they have tubs, and everybody's pouring the water, and you're supposed to kneel down and wash your neighbor's feet.
We did it in the church. We had like a fellowship hall, and you'd walk in there, and there'd be benches sort of like this, and buckets of water, and facing each other, and you'd wash your brother's feet, and you would pray that he'd use a little powder before he came in. Because sometimes if they didn't, it made the experience a little challenging.
I wish they
So
had in the masjid.
Here is the verse in the Bible pointing out this particular practice. John 13 verses 14 to 17, if I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. So, I would say if you get a blessing, blessed are those people who do this. Why did the people stop doing this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just my way I think. I'm looking for every blessing I can get.
I like that, to get my feet washed.
Modern day Christians will be shocked to hear the pilgrimage of Hajj, as is now done by Muslims by circumambulating around the sacred stone Kaaba in Mecca, have been performed by many prophets, even by the Israelite prophets. Often overlooked by Bible readers, this has been mentioned numerous times. Jacob, on his way to the Padan Aram, saw a vision and built the next morning a pillar of stone, which he called Bethel, i.e. the house of the Lord. In Genesis 28, 18 to 19, and Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillows and set it up for a pillar and poured oil over the top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel. But the name of that city was called Luz. at the first. Now I wanted to get out my Strongs, but I didn't have time because I actually worked on this lecture this morning at 6 o'clock? After 6 o'clock, yeah. I wanted to find out what the significance of pouring the oil on it, because there was a lot of anointing with oil, but I'm not sure what the definition. Do you know?
Yeah,
Darryl?
it symbolizes the Holy Spirit.
Okay, all right. Symbolizes the Holy Spirit. Thank you. So then that's very interesting, because from our perspective, if you're talking about the oil symbolizing the Spirit of God or the Holy Spirit, then that brings sanctity to that place, which is like the Kaaba, which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, the Kaaba, the life of human beings is more sanctimonious than the Kaaba itself. 2 hands were up. Let me catch those before I travel on. Yes, brother?
So where is Bethel and Luz now today? Do we know?
Do you know where Bethel is, Dara?
Not
Now?
right off the bat, I'd have to look it up.
No, not off the bat. Don't know. We'd have to look it up. That's what I was saying. I didn't get a chance to. Bethel. Bethel. And a lot of churches are named Bethel. I've seen Bethel Baptist, Bethel Methodist, Bethel this, Bethel. A lot of churches are named Bethel.
Just down from Bethlehem.
I'm not sure. I don't want to say what I don't know, but it makes sense. But I don't like to say unless I absolutely know. Did somebody else have their hand? Bassam, yes.
I had a question. Does Islam recognize all those different books? I know it says the Injil, but where does the Injil fall?
Well, technically speaking, Islam would recognize predominantly what you see in the red. So if you get a red letter edition, whatever Isa alayhi salam said, most scholars say this is very sort of spot on. This is very, very accepted as the Injil, because this was the gospel of Jesus. For example, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the synoptic gospels, according to which Christian scholar you talk to, were not discovered or written until 90 to 200 years, according to who you talk to, after the life of Christ, after he left. So therefore, there's some contradiction there.
So the New Testament.
So predominantly when we talk about the Injil, we talk about that which Jesus said. And when you look at, I believe mine is a red letter edition. Yeah, when you look at all this red, these were things that Jesus said, for example.
So that's the Injil then.
That's technically the Injil, yes.
So basically, we can say that the gospel of Jesus is the hadith of Jesus?
To say that again? No. The gospel, remember the Quran talks about the Injil was revealed to Jesus.
Yeah.
The Torah was revealed to whom? Moses. The Psalms were revealed to Dawood. And the Quran was revealed to Muhammad. So those are what we call, what in Greek we would say theokonupi, is God breathed. They are, I like to use the word in spirit action. The Spirit of God put on the heart of a man of God who was a prophet. So we call them Nabis. Why? Because they received a word from God. So most of the prophets did not. They actually carried out the word from a Nabi, from the one who received a divine revelation. Make sense? Help at all?
Yes.
Only a handful received actual divine
Only 5 received divine revelation.
So Moses was a Nabi, but Aaron was a prophet.
Exactly.
So the 5 are Adam, Jesus.
No, Adam did receive a divine revelation. And this is another reason that we say that Abraham, when we talk about Abraham being the father of monotheism, we have to look at lineage. So, who can name the 5 Nabis?
Noah, Moses, Abraham, Jesus, and Muhammad.
No.
David?
Let's do it again.
Not Noah.
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 Who did the Psalms?
Dawood.
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 Ah,
Yes.
Who did the Injil?
Jesus.
Who did the Old Testament or the Torah?
Moses.
Moses. And who did the Psalms?
We said that.
said that already.
And then who did the Quran?
But you said
And Abraham did the scrolls.
And Abraham did the scrolls. Abraham did the scrolls. Yes.
Moses was a Hebrew. Jacob was a Hebrew. Jacob and Joseph.
I think I might cover that.
Hebrew.
I covered it.
Hebrew is a language, the Jewish language.
I don't know. I'm going to cover that more, I believe. If I don't answer your question,
In the story of Moses, they said he's not an Egyptian. He's not. He's a Hebrew.
I believe so.
Because he don't look like the Egyptians. He looks like a.
I covered that, and if I didn't cover it, if somebody wants to write that question down, I want to make sure I clarify it for you. But right now, because I don't know the answer, I don't want to.
Hebrew is a language, right? And it's a name of a people.
It's both.
It's both.
Did it come from Hebron? The name?
I don't know. I don't want to say what I don't know. What I know, I'll tell you. What I don't know, I won't make it up.
I have one question I was asking myself 3 days ago, 3 days ago, where Nuh alayhi salam book.
Say that again now.
I was thinking Allah gave the revelation, but I don't see any book about Nuh alayhi salam.
Well, okay, Noah did not receive a book. Okay, he was not a Nabi. Remember the difference between a Nabi and a Rasul. What is the difference?
Book of Allah.
Nabi received divine revelation from Allah. The messengers carried out the revelations that existed. There were how many messengers? According to scholars.
Over 120,000.
Somewhere between 125 and 144,000. How many of them actually received revelation from God? 5 of them. Very different, right? Very different. Yes, sister.
So what is English for Nabi?
No, because the word for messenger is Rasul. And messenger is a good word. The word for the ones that receive divine revelation, the good word is prophet, because it's sort of like getting a prophecy from God, if you think like that. But every messenger was a Rasul, but every messenger was not a Nabi.
Every Nabi was a Rasul.
Thank you. I said it backwards, right? Every Nabi was a messenger, but every Nabi was not a Rasul. A Rasul is one who received a divine revelation. Everybody get that?
Nabi. A Nabi is a prophet.
But I thought that's what I said the first time, didn't I? All right. Okay. We have Nabi. All right, and then we have Rasul, right?
Let's say he's a Nabi and a Rasul. So he's a messenger and a prophet.
How many of these do we have?
5.
5. How many of these do we have?
Over 124,000.
Every Nabi is a Rasul, but not every Rasul is a Nabi.
Yeah, every one of these is one of these, but every one of these is not one of these. That's what I was trying to say. Everybody got it now.
Just for the sake of conversation, can you go over the 5 Nabis one last time?
Okay, give them to me, class.
David.
Abraham. Moses.
Isa,
Jesus.
Musa.
And Dawood. That's it.
Okay. Everybody got it?
Yeah.
I always have a hard time with that, funny enough. I get it mixed up. I know what I'm saying, but it doesn't come out right. So, years later, the same prophet Jacob was ordered by Allah to go to Bethel. Jacob removed all the strange gods prior to going there. Later also, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, removed all the idols around the sacred stone Kaaba in Mecca. So here it is in Genesis 35:2. Then Jacob said unto his household and to all that were with him, put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. Sound familiar? When we go to worship on Friday, what do?
Wear our best garments.
We take a ghusl and wear our best garments. A continuation of divine revelation that came before. And today, in a lot of churches, people get up in the morning, take a shower, put on their very best clothes. Now that's also relaxed, because when I grew up, you did not think of going to a church without a shirt and tie on. Now when I go to churches, the minister might even have a pair of shorts on and a Hawaiian shirt, or, you know, what's it called, Columbia, those shirts that you wear outside when you're fishing and stuff?
Yeah.
That stuff. As a matter of fact, there's a joke, because I remember meeting one of the pastors of a mega church here that invited me to speak at his church, and the first time I met him, he had one of those shirts on and a pair of shorts. So that is something that's also changed. You know, there's a lot of more relaxed in the dress code. And it's changed even for Muslims, because when we go to Juma, we do not see people wearing their best clothes. Let's just keep it for rizzle for snizzle. People are racing in for work, oftentimes, whatever they wear at work. If you're a mechanic, you got on a mechanic outfit. If you're a carpenter, you got on a carpenter outfit. If you're a CPA, then you got your suit and tie on maybe, unless you live in Florida where it's too hot, forget about that tie. But we sort of come in the form that we're in because of our condition. Another pillar was built by Jacob and his father-in-law Laban. In Genesis 31:45 through 49, and Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones, and they took stones and made an heap. And they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jergasa Hadutha. But Jacob called it Galid. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Galid. And Mizpah, for he said, the Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent from one another. So there is some symbolism. What I find also that is a very interesting symbolism is that who was 40 days and night in the belly of the whale? Who went into the wilderness 40 days and 40 nights?
Who was 40 days? 40 days?
Jesus, right? What else happened in the Bible that was 40 days?
But the test for oil, lasted 40 days.
Yes, what was it? Was it the Passover?
The Passover.
The Passover, thank you. Now let's look at that. All of those things were 40 days of sanctification, setting yourself apart in the cause of God. So why is it a surprise that we now fast 29 or 30 days for a month? It was all done before, similar things. There is a precedent set of commonality of setting a time apart in a year. They did 40 days, we only have to do 30. 29 or 30 according to the moon.
What were they doing in the wilderness for 40 days?
Well, what was the Prophet Muhammad doing in the cave? He was meditating. They went there to meditate, to find God, to communicate with God, to have communion with God. So look at the beautiful commonality.
So that's what you did in North Carolina last weekend?
Well, I sort of did a little bit of that. I went into the mountains, and quite honestly, I would love to be able to go back and do some meditation in the mountains because it's so quiet there. At night, though, the crickets are in a lot of competition. They make a lot of noise, the crickets and the frogs.
Don't take your cell phone there.
But no, you can't get a signal. That's the beautiful thing. When you're in the valleys and the mountains, you can't pick up a signal if you have T-Mobile. And that's what I have. So I think God blessed me with T-Mobile so that for a week nobody could find me. It was funny, I did get one or two calls when I happened to be on the top of the mountain and people got me.
Do you have a boat? Do you have a boat up there?
No, I didn't have a boat up there. But you don't even need one because it's so, I'm telling you, it's so amazing. You really do feel, you can understand why many of the prophets, when they talk about the mountains and things, you can really find solace there.
Yes.
And if you think about it, I actually did look at a piece of property up there. I loved it so much. I said, man, this would be wonderful if I could retreat for the summer and study and then come back and teach whatever I learned in the winter in Florida when it's a little cooler. And I could so understand why people retreat there. When they talk about the winters there, people leave. People sell their homes and can't take it. It's so brutal. It's so cold. One lady said, well, you know, if they say we're going to get a storm, we stock up on canned food for 10 or 12 days because we lose power. Sometimes the power's off for 2 weeks. And the more they talked about it, we understood why people don't do it anymore because it's hard. But doesn't that sound like the jihad of the naf stuff? We are literally struggling every day in the world to try to get close to God, to be close to God, to have communion with the Lord. So, and Deborah, please forgive me for murdering these names, but I'm sure that most theologians do the same thing, right?
Yes.
These are the hardest names in the Old Testament, and I've always battled with them. Jephthah and Ammon had a war against each other. Jephthah swore to the Lord in Mizpah and this is a different spelling of Gilead that I had before, but you find both spellings, to sacrifice his only daughter if he won. What does that sound like? Yeah, and it also sounds like what was going on when the prophet arrived in the Saudi scene. Men were burying their daughters alive. They didn't value their daughters. So this man said, if I lose, I'll kill my daughter. So he won and brought his daughter there alive as an offering. Sorry, if he won, he would kill his daughter. Sorry. In Judges 11:29 to 39, here's verse 39. And it came to pass at the end of the 2 months that she returned and to her father, who did with her according to his vow which he had vowed. So he won and he killed her. And this is a biblical story. Now here's what I really want to hone in on. And then we'll build on this, and we'll be building on this probably for 2 weeks. In Isaiah 21 and 13, it refers to the burden of Arabia. The burden of Arabia. And as a matter of fact, let me read the whole verse, if I may, because I don't want to. I want you to see it in its context. So Isaiah 21:13. And I need somebody with good eyes, because I cannot read this without my glasses, I don't think. The burden upon Arabia in the forest in Arabia shall ye lodge, O ye traveling companions of Dedanum. Please read this, folks. Don't take my word for it. Check me out. Maybe I'm making a mistake here and there. I want you to check me out. Confront me if I teach you wrong. It is a responsibility of Muslim Arabs, and of course all Muslims now, to spread Islam and to demonstrate to those that Allah gives Scripture, Jews and Christians, that their books recognize Muhammad and many of his practices just as they recognize their own children. Goes back to chapter 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 146.
Burden upon Arabia, the force of Arabia shall be lodged with the traveling companions of
Dedanum, yeah.
How does
So-
that say that, though?
Pardon me?
That's
Well, the burden of Arabia, I just took the quote, I took the most important punchline from the verse, and then I read you the same verse that you did. I'm giving you what I want you to see. The gist of the whole verse is this burden of Arabia, right? Right?
Yeah.
So the burden of Arabia is that we teach Jews and Christians, that we invite them to see all of these things that we have in common. And that their books recognize Muhammad. Now, next week, I'm going to go further into this, and by the following week, it's going to be crystal clear to you from Deuteronomy that there's no doubt about whether the Prophet Muhammad is in the Bible. No, will not be any doubt to anybody in this room.
Is he mentioned as Muhammad or is mentioned as
Well, he's
somebody's
mentioned. You're jumping ahead, and that's not allowed. He's mentioned as the prophet from Paran. And we're going to talk about that. The Becca is mentioned in the Bible. Where is Becca? Mecca. So we're going to lay the foundation, and I'm going to show it to you. But if I just give you the punchline, you won't come back next week. You'll say, I already got the answer. So I want you to stay tuned so that you really get this, because it is, I believe, I deem by Allah, that this burden is on us to show our neighbors, our Jewish and Christian neighbors, all this stuff that we have in common. And to build upon that, to build bridges on that. You know, there's no compulsion to religion. I'm not coming to you to convert you, but I'm coming to show you how much we have in common. And to show you that these practices that Muslims do that seem so foreign to you are actually mentioned in your book. That's phenomenal to me. Powerful stuff. In chapter 2, verse 146, and this is really what all this is geared about, to really expound upon this verse in the Holy Quran. Those to whom we gave the scriptures, Jews and Christians, recognize him, Muhammad or the Kaaba at Mecca. Look at all the verses that I talked about, the stones as pillars. As they recognize their own sons, but verily a party of them conceal the truth while they know it. That is the qualities of Muhammad which are written in the Torah and the Injil. This is the truth from your Lord. So be ye not of those who doubt. So, mashallah, you know, this to me is the stuff that we should know. This is the stuff that we should know and share with our beloved people of the book. We are allowed to marry them. Imagine as a Muslim man you marry a person of the book and you can't share all this stuff you got in common. You think you're right and they're all wrong. Not going to be the ingredients of a very good marriage. And that's coming from a person that has a graduate degree in marriage and family counseling. So both Ishmael and Isaac were blessed. We will probably pick back up here, but it'll be a review. After Isaac was weaned, his mother Sarah saw Ishmael mocking him and didn't want Ishmael to be heir with her son Isaac. Let's look at Genesis 21, 8 through 10. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. Where does this come from? From the Bible. Isaac was about 2 years old when he was weaned. What does that sound like?
Islam.
It sounds like Islam. The Quran enjoins us, the Sunnah enjoins us to breastfeed for how long?
2 years.
2 years. Ishmael was then 16 years old because Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael and was 100 years old when Isaac was born, according to Genesis 16. Pay attention, folks. I want you to look at these ages. It's very clear if you concentrate. And Abram was 60 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abraham. And in Genesis 21:5, and Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. So how old was he when Isaac was born? Very good.
How many is 4 score?
4 score is 80. Each score is
80 and 60.
no.
She says 4 score.
It should be 6. I'm sorry, it was 86. That's a typographical error.
Okay.
4 score and 6 years. Thank you. And Genesis 21:8 through 10 is in contradiction with Genesis 21:14 through 21, where Ishmael was portrayed as a baby put on the shoulders of his mother, called lad and child. When both left Sarah, and Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and the child, arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thine hand. This was the profile of a baby and not a teenager. So Ishmael and his mother Hagar left Sarah long before Isaac was born. From 86 to 100 years is how many years? 14. Does a mama pick up a 14-year-old and carry it around? Not lately. Not unless it's having a concussion or something and adrenaline sets in. And how embarrassing would it be for a 14-year-old if mama was carrying it around? According to the Islamic version, Abraham took Ishmael and Hagar and made a new settlement in Mecca, are called Paran in the Bible, in Genesis 21:21.